A road like an ice rink. It is the iciest and slippiest route in Russia. 1,200 miles long, also known as Death Road.
This place is really dangerous.
Our reporter Nico wants to accompany a truck driver on the world's coldest road. Destination? A completely isolated village out in the wilds where the inhabitants urgently need fresh food supplies. We are going to Siberia, to Yakutsk, known as the coldest city on Earth. The tour is scheduled to start from here tonight, so Nico has to make sure he's warm enough.
Well, for starters, it's freezing cold, -40 today, and above all, the streets here in the city centre don't look very inviting either, and the further east we go, the colder it gets.
Continuing eastwards, the world's coldest road is the only supply route for an area 9 times the size of Germany. Our destination is the village of Oymyakon. And he is willing to take our reporter along. Truck driver Misha. He invited Nico to his house because Misha always spends the evening before a long, hard tour with his wife and his 2 sons. The smaller one is just 5 months old.
Are you afraid when your husband's away?
Of course. Even though I've never been there, I know his stories and I've seen the photos on the news.
And what do you tell your wife? I tell her not to be afraid of the road. I always think positively.
Time to leave.
Let's go.
Misha wants to start at night, so that he can reach the first dangerous sections of the route by daylight. The freight for the 460 villagers still has to be loaded.
Fruit, vegetables, pasta, butter, flour, sugar. Will we be on the road for long? I hope to arrive in a day and a half. How often do you drive? About 3 times a month, if the road is passable. In winter it's cold and in summer the road is often washed away.
The truck has definitely seen better days.
Aren't you afraid? Somebody's got to do it. Here we go.
Our first destination is the River Aldan, which will be a particular challenge tomorrow. The 5-ton truck has to cross the frozen ice sheet to get to the other side. But for now, we're still driving on tarmac. The main thing is to keep the engine running.
Sometimes it's extremely cold, and if you then stop and sleep, the truck freezes immediately, and then you can't go on. Are there many accidents here? Yes, it's dangerous and slippy at this time of year. You can hardly get up the mountains.
It soon becomes obvious that the reports about the world's coldest road are not exaggerated.
What happened there? A truck. Well, you can see here it's as dangerous as hell.
And this won't be the only truck that didn't make it. Seven hours later, just outside today's destination, we take a short nap before we hit the ice with our 5-ton vehicle tomorrow morning.
Wake up! Good morning. Did you get any sleep? Yeah. It's 32 degrees in here and almost -50 outside. That's a difference of 80 degrees.
The engine has to run continuously, otherwise it would freeze immediately. That's why it's so hot in the cabin.
Where are we? This is the Aldan.
The Aldan is a great Siberian river. Part of the route now crosses it. The authorities opened the crossing to cars only a few days ago. Before that, the layer of ice was too thin and the risk too high.
What's the maximum weight limit at the moment? So, this time of year, the maximum weight limit is 5 tons. The ice is not thick enough for bigger trucks yet.
The truck can move across this slippery ice surface at a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour. If the ice were to crack, there would be hardly any time to get out of the vehicle, and the river is extremely deep in the middle.
Cars do sometimes go through the ice here. When that happens, it's on the internet and the news, and it always makes my family nervous.
It is the world's coldest road, and on this section it is nothing but ice. After another hour, we reach the other side, and the next special place, a site for offerings to the gods. Misha, of course, has a little gift for them.
Sugar. Sugar. Why sugar? Sugar's delicious. Everyone likes it.
The symbolic offering is to bring good luck for a safe journey. The beauty of the countryside can make you forget the sacrifices it took to build this road. It began about 90 years ago. Prisoners toiling in the ice desert under inhuman conditions. The construction lasted over 30 years. Hundreds of thousands died. Even today, the so-called Tolima route is the only highway in an area as large as Europe. And this is the last chance to fill up with fuel.
How many litres does it take? 250. 250, and you're filling up? Sure, completely full.
It's going to have to last for the rest of the trip. After a total of 1,600 miles on the Kolyma route, we reached the Chorny Pruzhim Gorge. Until now, the world's coldest road was just icy. Now it's icy and steep.
Is this the riskiest part of the trip? Yeah, cars fall down there all the time. You have to be really careful.
On this section of the road, dozens of drivers die every year. Boulders come crashing down from above, and sometimes the drop is around 300 feet. There is, of course, no winter service here at the edge of the world, so the pace is slow and steady.
What happened there? A truck came off the road here the other day. The driver was killed instantly. He was thrown from the cabin.
Misha is tired, but we continue through the night. The village is waiting for the delivery. The goods must arrive on time tomorrow. Misha only allows himself one break, after 24 hours at the wheel. In Café Cuba, everyone knows each other. Almost every truck driver stops here.
What do you talk about? We talk about fatal accidents, but most of the time we exchange information if there's anything blocking the road somewhere.
Then, after almost 560 miles, we finally have our goal in sight. At dawn, we reached the village of Oymyakon. It's minus 50 degrees. This is the coldest place on Earth.
Aren't you always really tired when you arrive? No, on the contrary. I'm always glad when things turn out well. It's a great comfort.
After 40 hours of driving, we reach our destination, a small village shop. Misha is here, finally! Misha is a hero here.
How important are these supplies for the village?
Very, very important. The road was closed for 2 months. Then all the shelves in the shop were empty. There's hardly anything around here. We're always eagerly waiting for the road to reopen.
The first fruit for 2 months.
Now there's finally fruit and butter in Oymyakon again.
What do you think? How long are you going to keep doing this work? The longer the better.
After an overnight stay, we start our journey back. We've learned how dangerous, but also how vital it is for the survival of the villagers out here, the coldest road in the world.
This is awesome. You can't see anything. No sky, no ground.
For 2 weeks, we are allowed to accompany the researchers at the German research station in Antarctica, Neumayer Station III. They give us an insight into their everyday life and their work in the perpetual ice. A place like no other on the planet.
It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
A very special adventure for our team too.
Here we go at last. We've waited so long for this.
We've put half a year of preparation into this film. We, that's cameraman Patrick and editor Matthias. To travel to Antarctica at all is a real adventure for us. Our journey begins in a doctor's surgery in Germany. Everyone who wants to go to the research station has to undergo an extensive checkup, and so do we. It's supposed to reduce the risk of someone becoming seriously ill while in Antarctica.
The things they want to know about you. All this for 2 weeks.
The diagnosis? We are fit and healthy. Now, the clothes. The Alfred Wegener Institute, which also operates the Neumayer Station, provides researchers and us with polar equipment.
Now that's a sleeping bag. It's like a giant clothing store, just for expedition gear. How cool is that?
Wie geil ist das denn?
Each of us gets over 30 pieces of equipment for our time in the Antarctic. However, everything is only borrowed. And now, we pack. For the shoot in Antarctica, we've taken more than we usually do. Spare cameras and lots of batteries. At low temperatures, they deplete very quickly. Everything has to be packed safely. Antarctica isn't really the place where you can buy replacements.
Now we're off to Antarctica.
The journey really starts in Cape Town, South Africa. From the airport there, we're supposed to be heading straight to Antarctica. For now, it's still sandal weather.
How are you? I'm excited. It's the most extreme thing I've ever done.
Only for a few months a year, during the Antarctic summer, are flights to the Antarctic possible at all, weather-wise. The passengers are almost exclusively scientists, but we're a bit surprised. Everything else is just so normal. Okay, not everything. The bags in the front of the plane contain the polar clothes from the clothing store, so we better take them along.
Good morning.
From the inside, the plane looks like a normal holiday aircraft, but after a few hours in the air, the first people suddenly start to get changed in the aisle. Let's just join in. Then we look out the window and get our first view of the Antarctic. Overwhelming. But where do you land a plane in Antarctica? On the ice, of course.
We're here. Have you looked out of the window? It's incredible. I've never been so excited. Have you looked out of the window yet? Here we are. Weird. I still can't believe it.
Ich glaub's immer noch nicht so ganz.
But we're now in Antarctica, although not yet at our destination. We changed to this little polar plane. To be able to land where we want to go, it needs skids instead of wheels. After a total of 8 hours since leaving Cape Town, we finally reach our destination, Neumayer Station III. About 40 people from different countries are there at the moment. And now, so are we. While it's winter in Germany, it's summer here. And actually, it's not that cold at all. Not even -10 degrees. But there's a blizzard raging. We want to experience it just this once and get ready for a walk. In a small group, we set off. Finding your way is only possible in this weather thanks to the black lifelines. Our plan is to get up the hut pictured on the right, our bedroom for the next 2 weeks. This is how we'll sleep. Afterwards, we go right back. It is only a few hundred meters, but the walk is a real adventure.
My glove's frozen. How was it? So cold. A little windy.
Neumayer Station III is the only German research station in Antarctica that is occupied all year round. It is operated by the Alfred Wegener Institute. In summer, up to 50 people live here. Most researchers stay for several weeks, but there's a group that stays all year round. The group of overwinterers consists of 9 people, 4 scientists, 1 doctor, 1 cook, 1 radio operator and 2 technicians. They spend 14 months at the station. Even during the Antarctic winter, when the station is completely cut off from the outside world. Neither ships nor planes can get in or out. And during the polar night, the sun never rises for more than 2 months. It's dark around the clock. He is one of the overwinterers. Dr. Bernhard Gropp is a doctor and head of the station. He's responsible for a medical study that has nothing to do with Antarctica, but with space travel.
Yes, come in.
Hallo Thomas. Hallo. Na, wie geht's?
All overwinterers take part in the study. This includes station engineer Thomas Sterbens.
Ja, wir schauen hauptsächlich
Yes, we mainly look at the overwinterer's adaptability to the isolation, to the lack of stimuli, and also to the stress reactions.
Und auch die Stressreaktion, es bildet ja
These are all factors that cause a stress reaction.
hervorrufen.
The study provides important findings for space medicine. The idea: the overwinterers' lives here resemble a space mission. They are isolated, they are always in the same environment. How this affects the health of all the overwinterers is checked with the help of blood samples. But the extraordinary circumstances here also have an effect on the psyche.
Über den Winter, also
Over the winter, i.e. the dark polar night, you can see most of the team members slowing down a bit, that the need to sleep has increased,
viel stärker
and you have the feeling that you don't remember things as well.
Fähigkeiten. Also man hat das Gefühl, man erinnert sich nicht so
This
gut.
is a subjective perception, of course,
Aber
but I
das kann
think
man
you
von
do
anderen
notice it.
Mitgliedern, zumindest in dieser kleinen Gruppe, beobachten.
Besides the blood samples, there are also psychological tests. How much the overwinterers sleep and how much they move during the day are also tracked around the clock. And there is a space simulator. Once a month, Thomas Sterbens has to try to capture a satellite with a robot arm. An exercise that prospective astronauts have to do, and which requires an extreme amount of skill and concentration.
Now we've pushed him out into space. Not good?
Das ist nicht gut. Nein.
No, that's definitely not good. But the robot has a lot of axes, and you can move it in almost every direction.
This is exactly why the study participants do this exercise. The question is, does life here have an influence on spatial perception or fine motor skills? The results of the study are still to come, but maybe research here in Antarctica will be able to improve space travel a bit more in the future. A storm has been raging at the research station for several days. The underground car park remains closed for safety reasons. So, the researchers have to work inside, including sea ice physicist Stefanie Arndt. This thing is an electromagnetic measuring device. It measures the conductivity of the environment. The scientists want to use it to determine the thickness of sea ice. Because metal falsifies the measurements, they put the device into a plastic kayak. But why is it even important to know how thick the ice on the sea is? Sea ice is of course a very important indicator when it comes to understanding climate interactions and changes in climate. And even if we don't see the strong changes in Antarctica yet, it is of course important to describe the actual state in order to see where this might lead. Meaning, if climate change were to arrive in Antarctica, Stefanie Arndt will be able to measure it. Now we wait.
What's stopping you from just driving off?
The weather. There's still quite a storm out there, and that's why they are afraid that when they open the hatch, everything will be covered in snow, and that's why we have to be patient for now. But it is worth the wait. Once the weather is good, the scientists can finally get out, and we're right there with them. And we'll find out what's hiding under this flap in the ice. Also, a moment of shock. Our cameraman takes a fall during a snowstorm. So, stay tuned for the second part of our trip to Antarctica. Our team has now been in Antarctica for a week, on the other side of the world, at the German research station Neumayer 3. We want to know, what are they actually researching here? A snowstorm has been raging since we got here, but we won't let that stop us. Together with geophysicist Mirko Czerwonka, our editor in his black jacket is heading towards the Geomagnetic Observatory. Now, what could that be? First problem, getting there.
If the weather was good, we could go straight there. There's a wooden signpost.
But because the weather is not good, we have to follow the black lifelines. They show the way to all important research facilities, the so-called observatories in the vicinity of the station. This is one of them. But this is not our final destination. Here we have to put belts on, because we're going to climb downwards into the ice.
And how deep does it go? About 10 meters. Okay.
Then a hatch suddenly appears, in the middle of the ice. So, this is the entrance into the Magnetic Field Observatory.
I think the idea of climbing into the ice is so crazy.
We learn that the shaft gets deeper every year. Every year it grows about 1 meter in height. The reason? Snowfall.
Oops.
Matthias enjoys the descent.
This is so funny.
But the station's geophysicist has to come down here every other day, which is quite a commute.
Yeah, it's not easy.
At the bottom, we discover the devices used to measure the magnetic field here. They are particularly sensitive to cold and vibrations. But deep inside the ice, it's relatively warm throughout the year and there's no wind. Geophysicist Mirko Czerwonka works here as a kind of watchdog for the Earth's magnetic field. He regularly measures the field strength and orientation.
Without the magnetic field, the sun's rays would hit the Earth and make life difficult. So the magnetic field protects the Earth from magnetic solar storms, for example.
Because of eruptions on the sun, such solar storms occur again and again. This is not a bad thing at first, because the Earth's magnetic field is like a protective shield. But if the magnetic field changes or becomes weaker, the protective shield no longer functions properly. That's why it is so important to study the magnetic field. Without a protective shield, solar storms could cause large-scale power outages, or even cause our mobile phone network to collapse. The scientists in this ice cave are making sure that we find out about this early enough. Back at the research station, we get something to eat. And it's not dry bread or astronaut food. We are fascinated by what the station chef cooks up here 3 times a day. Zürcher Geschnetzeltes in Antarctica? Fresh food is only available when planes land in summer, but there's nothing else missing. Once a year, an icebreaker delivers 60 tons of food. And on the way back, the ship also becomes a garbage disposal vessel. The station engineer explains that the researchers' waste doesn't just get disposed of somewhere in Antarctica.
All garbage that comes to Antarctica must also be taken back, which means it's compressed as small as possible, shredded and then stowed in containers, and every gram is written down so we can reconstruct what's in each container.
The next day, it's still blowing a gale, but we really want to get out. Tim Heitland is going to accompany us. He's a former overwinterer and now coordinates the station's operations.
What's this? This is the board on which we record who's currently in the facility. Because in case of a fire, you can see who else is in the station, who else is missing, and who to look for. And I just change my status here. Absolutely.
Outside, the storm is blowing at over 80 kilometers per hour. Due to a physical effect, under this station built on stilts, the wind is even stronger. Not exactly perfect working conditions for cameraman Patrick. But the storm isn't the scariest part. If you walk away from the station, it looks like there's just nothing out there.
This is weird. You see no sky, you see no ground, you see nothing at all. Yeah, we call these conditions whiteout. Practically no contrast, no horizon, and on top of that, there's the flying snow.
We're still in the middle of an interview when suddenly... Poor Patrick.
Are you all right?
Let's hope it's nothing serious. So, first of all, camera off. The next morning, Patrick's foot hurts. He can hardly walk. Fortunately, there's a fully equipped hospital at the research station and a doctor. The X-rays show that nothing is broken, so all he can now do is wait.
I'm going to take a day off, and then I'll go out again tomorrow. I also hope that the weather will be better by then.
Yeah, the next day the weather is wonderful. We can finally go out. And Patrick is actually back on his feet. So now it's non-stop filming. Sea ice physicist Stefanie Arndt is getting her kayak ready, which has an ice thickness gauge inside it. We're accompanying her to find out how climate research works.
Can I put this in here, the camera equipment?
It's the first time our editor has been on a snowmobile, and it's the first time we can see blue sky in Antarctica.
Here we go at last. We've waited so long for this. I'm so excited.
What a sight! An endless ice desert.
This is awesome. Check it out. This is so incredibly beautiful.
Antarctica is almost twice as big as Australia. And even if it doesn't look like, it's not just ice. Antarctica is a real continent, land that is largely covered by an ice sheet. It is almost 5 kilometers thick in places. At the edge of this ice sheet, the so-called shelf ice floats on the sea. It is still several hundred meters thick. After all, the outermost edge of Antarctica consists of sea ice, seawater that freezes in winter. In summer, however, it melts and the sea ice surface shrinks by 80%. As a result, Antarctica shrinks as well, until it grows again in winter. This is where the sea ice begins. All this will break up in a few months and drift away. Then there's only water here, so Stefanie Arndt has to work fast. She wants to know how thick the sea ice is in certain places, along a so-called transect. She uses an electromagnetic measuring device to measure the thickness of the sea ice. A reduction in sea ice could be a crucial indication of how far climate change is affecting our planet. What we can read from the data, and this is a very important point, is the change. What are we measuring today, and what did we measure on the same transect 8 years ago, and what can we deduce from that? What can we observe in terms of global climate change? Researchers can't yet find any indication of climate change here. The hope is that, thanks to Antarctica's remote and isolated location, this could remain so for a while. Then we let the scientists continue their work in peace. Tim Heitland has another surprise for us. Incredible ice formations on the edge of the shelf ice, the transition between sea ice and shelf ice.
Wow, that's really beautiful. Good, isn't it? I think so too.
As we drive away from the edge of the ice shelf again, they are suddenly everywhere. Emperor penguins. The colony here is home to almost 30,000 penguins. What a sight. What a noise. What a dream to be here.
Tim, this is so wonderfully beautiful here. Do you still see it like this too? For me, it hasn't lost any of its magic. I still think it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
Our time in Antarctica has unfortunately come to an end. For us, it is back to Neumayer Station and then home. What remains are the memories of scientists who are passionate about their research, to help us understand how the magnetic field protects us from solar storms, what climate change is doing to our planet, and what happens to astronauts on space missions. And last but not least, this trip was a huge adventure that we will certainly never forget. "42 degrees in the shade, but there is no shade here." Our reporter, Raphael, is in the Australian outback. His destination, a ghost town in the middle of nowhere. A highly contaminated place, deserted and forgotten. A lost place with a dark history that can still be deadly to visitors today. Wittenoom. In the 60s, it was even the largest city in the Midwest of Australia, with just under 1,000 inhabitants. An exemplary project then. Also, a glimmer of hope for European immigrants. Many Germans came here looking for happiness, but what they found was death. That's because Wittenoom is one of the most dangerous places in the world. 80% of all people who have ever lived here are dead today.
Wearing my safety suit, I'm very well protected. And yet, it is a striking feeling to walk through a place that has cost so many people their lives. The whole thing is very scary. What was going on in this cafe? Couples in love, the waitress running from table to table with coffee, the overweight cook frying bacon. I can imagine it vividly, but it seems as if they've left everything behind hastily. You don't really feel the danger. It looks abandoned. But you can't tell what is supposed to be dangerous here.
But the danger is everywhere, and the city is so heavily contaminated that the government shut off all basic services in the early 2000s, such as water, electricity and the telephone. Wittenoom has been deleted from the maps. It ceased to exist. The reason can be found on the street.
Look here. There it is. This is the corpus delicti. That's blue asbestos. Look at this. And it's all over everywhere. Blue asbestos. This fibrous mineral was supposed to make Wittenoom wealthy and rich, but in reality it was their ruin, and still does not allow life there today. That's what I was told anyway. Do you hear that? That sounds like an engine. Maybe a generator. But that can't be possible. No one can live in this godforsaken place. Or can they?
Perth, on the Australian west coast, 3 days earlier. Our reporter found one of the few surviving inhabitants of Wittenoom. Raphael has a meeting with the president of the Australian Organisation Against Asbestos-Related Diseases, Robert Boyakovich. The native Croat, like many Europeans, came to Australia in the 1950s searching for happiness.
Good morning.
Good morning, Raphael. Fine.
Hi, nice to meet you, Robert. Thank you very much for having me. You used to live in Wittenoom.
Yeah, I used to live in Wittenoom and I worked there for about 3 months in Asbestos mine.
What brings you to Perth, 2,400 kilometers away?
Well, I escaped actually from Wittenoom, because once you're there, you got to be there for 6 months on the contract, and I was very lucky that I was able to escape, to Perth. The problem was everything, more or less, no accommodation properly, no food, job was very hard, intolerable, a lot of dust.
As early as the 1930s, asbestos was already being mined at Wittenoom. The fibrous stone was a popular building material. Because it insulates well and is heat resistant, it was referred to in Germany as the miracle fibre. From remote parts of Europe, workers came over to dig it out of tunnels and separate it from the rock in the mill without masks or any other protection. Even though there were already suspicions of asbestos being dangerous at the time. Both in the mine and in the mill, microscopic fibres are created and inhaled by the unprotected workers and residents. Even years later, almost all of them suffer from a particularly aggressive type of lung cancer, which turns terminal within 9 months of diagnosis.
One night, Robert won a few $100s playing poker, which he used to convince a truck driver to smuggle him out of town and take him to Perth. Today, he owes his life to this decision.
Why don't you come with us?
Well, I possibly can't, because if I go to Wittenoom, I would actually show that Wittenoom is okay to go there. Our policy is you can't go there, it's contaminated. Government closed it, it's a closed area, it's no-go area, And we actually had at least 2 people who actually stayed there overnight camping, you understand, or the Bisitilioma.
Just for one night of camping?
Yeah.
As the consequences of the asbestos dust were being made public, Robert was founding an organisation that has been helping victims and survivors for over 40 years. He was able to distribute around €1 billion in compensation. He doesn't allow Raphael to go to Wittenoom without adequate protection. Only the safest is safe enough. In addition to the asbestos dust that Raphael must not inhale, a trip to the outback isn't without its dangers. Our reporter is expected to pack 50 litres of water, 30 litres of gas and food for at least 2 extra days.
After so much, it was clear to me, even if his stories and precautions made me nervous, I'm glad I met Robert and didn't simply go there unprepared. It takes 12 hours to drive through the outback. Hundreds of miles where I don't see a single car. There is nothing here. I wonder why anyone would ever get the idea of coming out here looking for happiness, let alone digging for asbestos. All that's waiting here is loneliness. No sign Wittenoom, not posted on any sign. What's this here? Tom Price. But that's the 134. It must be right here, somewhere in this direction.
In 2007, the Australian government declared Wittenoom as highly contaminated and revoked its city status. All street signs and map entries were removed. 80 kilometers further out in the outback, Raphael discovers a junction.
I think that was the actual access to the mine.
A simple sign blocks the way into the mine and details the dangers. It would be easy to get around, but Raphael decides to keep following the main road. And then...
I think this is it.
No barrier, no fence. Only a board on the roadside reads, "Enter at your own risk." 42 degrees in the shade, but as we know, there is no shade here.
The heat slaps me in the face, but that's frankly the least of my concerns. I'm actually really nervous, because I have no idea what to expect. How dangerous is this place really? Do you hear that? That sounds like a motor engine. Maybe a generator. This actually looks like someone's living here.
Hello? Hello?
Alright, so what are you up to?
Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, we are journalists from Germany. Hi buddy, And yeah, we were told that Wittenoom... are you actually living here?
Yeah.
Since when? For how long?
Oh, nearly 30 years.
Yeah? And are you living on your own?
Yeah.
Yeah? May I come in and have a look?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
What kind of a guy must he be to actually live here?
So, how is life here in Wittenoom?
Well, I like it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But all the people went away. Why did you stay here?
Well, I come after the mine closed, and because I like it here.
Yeah.
Good lifestyle.
This is an Austrian flag.
Yeah, I'm Austrian originally.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me introduce Mario Hartmann from Vorarlberg. His German's a bit rusty, but that doesn't stop him proudly showing me his garden. He can really show his pride for it. A homemade pool, running water, a vegetable patch. a solar panel system on the roof. A completely bizarre situation. I could easily forget that I'm currently in one of the most polluted places in the world, if not for my constant fear of my mask moving out of position. I feel so silly here with a safety suit and a gas mask at 50 degrees centigrade, and he is here in his flip-flops and without a shirt. But I still think it's the right thing to do, even if I am on the verge of having a heat stroke.
I don't want to be rude or, you know, because of the mask. What do you think about it?
Well, I don't think it's a problem here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been here 30 years.
It's safe here.
Yeah, I reckon the town is pretty good. You know, as long as you don't dig the asbestos up and all that, I reckon it's all right.
Okay.
And the big mess is out in the gorge.
Are you just lucky that you don't get the disease, or is it just...
Well, it's like cancer. Some people get it and some don't.
No, it's not like cancer, it is cancer. And I don't have to be the one who finds out today where you get it here and where you don't. But my mask doesn't seem to bother Mario at all. He proudly shows me his city, a completely different side of Wittenoom, which gives an idea of what it must have been like here.
Although the mine closed in 1966 for economic reasons, Wittenoom remained as the largest city in northwestern Australia. However, the inhabitants of the still heavily contaminated city began to die of lung diseases. Many moved away. A handful remained. It was not until the late 1980s that the government began demolishing houses and burying them in a large ravine. That's when the Austrian emigrant Mario scented his chance and began to earn his living as a kangaroo hunter in the area. At some point, the last inhabitants were gone. Mario stayed, and he found a new job.
We only have to read now. Now
Okay.
only read the gauges. Today, 42.3. So it's not that hot.
42.3 is not that hot.
No, it's not that hot.
Well, I say that's enough.
Genug.
Mario works for the Australian Weather Service. Twice a day he collects data: temperature, precipitation, cloud formations. He sends them using a satellite phone to the airport in Perth, 1,000 kilometers away. Mario's information is important for forecasts for air traffic.
A surreal scene. In the middle of this ghost town, a meticulously maintained, tidy house, financed with 2 shifts of 10 minutes work per day.
About $850 a month.
Okay. Oh, that's a good amount, isn't it?
Yeah, but you have to be here all the time. Like, you have to do it all the time.
So no vacation for you?
9 o'clock in the morning, 365 days a year. 9 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's
Okay.
it. So for me, it's very hard to go away, see?
But what if you get ill? Or sick, or you...
Well, I've just been to Perth, and I had to get somebody to come here from Tom Price to do it. Look, I can't leave here because of the power and everything.
Okay.
You have to run the power, and I got the dog, and I got a rabbit.
And what do you do when you break your leg somewhere out in the outback?
Well, I already had some problems, you know, I dislocated my shoulder and stuff. Well, just somebody, a mate of mine or whatever has to come here, and then I have to go away. But that's why I'm not going away. That's it. I'm usually always here.
Once the pride of a region twice as big as Germany, now a ghost town in the middle of nowhere.
Wittenoom. 80% of all inhabitants have since died as a result of asbestos contamination. Only an Austrian hasn't been defeated by the town. Quite the contrary.
What do you miss most?
Oh, nothing really. I reckon there's still too many houses here now. I like it, yeah. Because if we wouldn't have the asbestos, this be a big tourist thing here. There'd be people everywhere. And I wouldn't be here then.
On my trip to the contaminated lost place, I expected a sad, intimidating city. And that's Wittenoom, no question. I can't wait to leave this place and protection suit behind. For Mario, it's exactly the city in which he wants to live. And thanks to him, Wittenoom is not quite as lost as it seems.